Nico Ali Walsh, the grandson of boxing legend Muhammad Ali, won his most recent fight by unanimous decision. His opponent, Sona Akale, actually beat Nico last year, but the latter finally got his revenge. The fight was a decent 6-rounder, nothing particularly incredible in terms of skill level, but Nico was only 23 without a real amateur background, so I'm sure he'll grow into the sport as he matures. The real highlight is when Nico dislocated his shoulder mid-fight, and he had to work to get it back into place. That was an absolutely crazy moment, and I respect how he remained calm and composed throughout. The main part of the fight that I want to talk about occurs after the final bell, and Nico was declared the victor. So Nico wins his fight, and then proceeds to mention Jake Paul by name in his post-fight interview. Instead of surmising his words, I'll just show you the clip.
I chose the path of legacy. If I wanted to, I could be a millionaire right now. Before this fight, I denied a multi-million-dollar contract from MVP Promotions to fight Jake Paul, and I'm fighting a real fighter tonight. So I'm not a part of that circus league of boxing. This is the real league of boxing. This is what I'm gonna do.
There's a lot to unpack here. First of all, I think that while the money Jake Paul was offering is insane, Nico was smart not to take the fight. Not because it's circus boxing or Jake Paul is making a mockery of the sport, nothing like that. Nico would have just been putting himself at a terrible weight disadvantage, and yeah, that's not a good look on Jake's part either. I understand KSI and Jake Paul needing to find opponents that have name value, can provide a challenge and some jeopardy, but ultimately can be beaten as well. Weight bullying is not the way to go about it though, unless you're fighting someone elite like Mayweather or Amir Khan in my opinion. Regardless, the contract Jake and his team were putting on the table is insane, as I said. I know that Nico's family are probably loaded thanks to his grandfather and don't necessarily need the paycheck, but millions of dollars is still millions of dollars at the end of the day. I also get that Nico and a ton of pro boxers look down upon influencers getting in the ring. But here's my counter-argument. The truth is that KSI and Jake Paul can and have beaten so-called professional boxers with winning records. I'm not sure if the guys Nico has been fighting are better or worse than the top influencer boxers, but I believe the skill gap isn't too drastic. Nonetheless, these YouTubers train very hard and put on a show in front of millions of people. I will even go as far as to say that Jake Paul, for example, can win a regional title in America. The point being is that the term pro boxer is antiquated to begin with when discussing influencer boxing. Even though there's a big difference in skill between Canelo and, Peter Buckley, they are both pro boxers technically. Every elite boxer who starts their pro career has fought absolute tomato cans who they can bowl over in a round. You're telling me that KSI and Jake Paul are less legitimate than those cans? I'm not saying Nico is wrong for not accepting a fight with Jake Paul. Like I said, it makes Jake look really bad to be calling out a middleweight when he's around 200 pounds at the moment. That being said, I don't see the harm with starting your pro career by fighting decent YouTube boxers rather than the useless fucking cans you see prospects finish. The skill levels are comparable and the paycheck would be a lot higher if they fought an influencer. I can totally see a future where a lot of young boxing prospects sign with Most Valuable Promotions or Misfits Boxing and get their professional careers off the ground with a built-in devoted audience watching. I mean, it's already happening with Amir Khan, Ashton Silva, and Gabe Silva, son of famed UFC fighter Anderson Silva. Nico also mentions that he's fighting for his family's legacy, but I don't think if he fights an influencer it would be that damaging. Floyd Mayweather's perfect undefeated record and boxing legacy will still be intact if he fights Logan Paul or not. Even fucking Muhammad Ali participated in bullshit exhibition fights with pro wrestlers like Antonio Inoki. That exhibition specifically had mixed rules which predated the sport of MMA, and it was an absolute mess of a fight. If Nico wanted to blame someone for circus fights as he puts it, you can trace them back to Muhammad Ali. Still though, that was just a little novelty in Muhammad Ali's career and didn't affect his overall legacy. Even now you see Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua boxing the likes of Francis Ngannou. Tell me, do their accomplishments get binned all of a sudden? Is Anthony fucking Joshua, 2-time heavyweight champion of the world, an embarrassment to the sport for having a crossover fight? If Nico enters the world of YouTube boxing for a couple of fights, I don't see it as him betraying his family's legacy or traditional boxing like he puts it, to be honest. He would just be starting his pro career with influencers instead of journeymen. No traditional boxing pundit would like to admit this, but there are plenty of influencers that would beat the brakes off of the same journeymen and tomato cans that elite boxers fight. I don't think that these YouTube boxers can compete with the likes of Canelo, Terence Crawford, these elite pro boxers. And neither does any fan in the YouTube boxing scene. I think pro boxing pundits have this warped view of crossover boxing, its audience, and crossover boxing's relationship with the traditional scene. However, that's a discussion for another time. On the topic of Jake Paul, Muhammad Ali's grandson, and the effect of crossover boxing matches on a fighter's legacy, I'm super curious on what you guys think.